All right, shalom, shalom, family. We got another lesson for y'all today. Today, this is the Ten Commandments. Okay, get off the screen. The Ten Commandments. I'm gonna have a pretty in depth about it, breaking down each commandment. What's these at the 10 right here? I'm gonna go over them one by one. All right. So with that being said, let's get it. Open your books. Let's do the scrolling. Here we go. The Ten Commandments. I can read them off. First one is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt have no, thou shalt not make into thee any graven images. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. Honor thy father and mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And thou shalt not covet. All right. So you can find all these in Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. And then it shows it again, in an order like it does in Exodus, Deuteronomy 5, verses 1 through 21. All right. This is a couple of, lab adaptations of it. You got this first one over here. This is from like 1953. Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments. Then the one on the right is the Ten Commandments. Like a more updated version, which I haven't seen. I've seen the one on the left. It used to be my favorite movie. I would like to see a better one, so I'm gonna wind up watching that one on the right. These are cartoon versions of it. The Not So Golden Calf, and then we have the one on the right is the Kids' 10 Commandments. Right, looking forward to seeing those two. Just giving y'all some, things about what it is. Right. So Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 and 2, it reads. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Right. So this is him talking to Moses, telling him about the Ten Commandments to tell the children of Israel. Right. So the first commandment, here we go. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Right. So people, talking about God being jealous, which we're going to get into. But the jealousy is for a good reason. Right. That's number one. But there's no other gods before me. There's like no gods in his presence. He doesn't share his glory with gods. He doesn't share his time with gods. He doesn't share his presence. He doesn't share anything with gods, right? So not only before him, but around him, in him, on him. No, right? Nobody can be worshipped more than him, right? And not only that, you can only worship him, right? Nobody else gets that kind of worship, right? Nobody gets that kind of praise, right? And I'm going to show you some scriptures that go about it, right? So this is Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, and this is Yeshua speaking, or as the world knows Christ. It says, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Yeah, you cannot serve God and mammon, right? So, like I said, you can't have two masters, and this is going into talking about why God, has no other gods before him, because there are many gods. People always talking about, well, there's only one God. No, there's more than one God. Right, because God can mean just power. It can mean ruler or judge. Like I said, even God called Moses God, right? When Elijah was battling the prophets, right, they had said, Lords, Lords. They got God's God. There's plenty of God. Satan is called God, right? So God is just like a title, right? So when he said there's other gods before me, there's nobody that has like this power or ability that should be before me, right? So we can't serve both of them. You can't worship the devil and worship God, right? You can't, drink with the sinners and drink with the righteous, right? You can't do that. And the reason why is because God, like I said, he's not in the capacity to share his space with anybody. Because then, like I said, when you're sharing something, so let's just say like how he said it right here in the Masters, you can't serve both people because they'll have you doing different things. Let's say one master wants you to do oil changes, right? The other one wants you to change car batteries. So when the one that comes in with the oil changes, and like what's going on when you was trying to waver both of them, they didn't tell you that. So you were going to hate one or love the other. You're going to please one and displease the other, right? Same thing with God. You can't serve God and do all these things and then go out and do unrighteous things, and that doesn't work. And they were also trying to do that, back in the day in Kings and the Book of Kings and stuff like that, where they were acknowledging God, which Israel did a lot. They acknowledged God, but they also had their other gods, right? So they'll come to church on the Sabbath and stuff like that, but then they also go speak to their own gods, right? Got their own little entities and statues and idols. Same thing. That's what Solomon was doing, right? He was bringing in idols and stuff in the temple. So he's still like praising God and saying he worshiped God, but he also is praising the idols that the females he was talking to, right? The women that he was speaking to, right? You can't do that because God, like I said, God ain't in the business of sharing. He's not in the business of sharing nothing like that, right? So this is Joshua 24:14 through 21, right? It says, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served in the other side of the flood, and Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And the people answered and said, "God forbid that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods," right? So Joshua, right, getting the word from God, tell them like, "Hey, what y'all gonna do?" Right? So God's also giving them a choice. Y'all gonna serve gods or are y'all gonna serve me? Because clearly the gods aren't a thing. Like I said, people talking about there is no such thing as gods. Well, clearly they're saying it. It says all throughout the Bible there's other gods, right? Like I said, those other powers, right, which are fallen angels, which are over the other nations. And Joshua's asking them, what y'all gonna do, right? Because you can't serve both, so you gotta pick a side. And they're telling them like, okay, we're gonna, get it together and serve God. It says, "For the Lord our God, He it is that brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, and which did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the people to whom we passed. And the Lord drave out from before us all the people, even the Amorites which dwelt in the land. Therefore will we also serve the Lord, for He is our God." And Joshua said unto the people, "You cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God, and he's a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions nor your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve strange gods, then he will turn and do you hurt and consume you. After that, he have done you good." And the people said unto Joshua, "Nay, but we will serve the Lord." So Joshua making it clear as day, you can't serve other gods. You got to serve God, right? All right, because when you do serve other gods, God is jealous and you're gonna see what happens, right? He's gonna hurt you. He's gonna consume you. Now, people would say, "Why is God jealous?" Like, it's not the jealous sense of like the human attribute jealous, but it is jealous like that in a way. Not jealous because he's like, "Oh man, I can't serve other gods." It's more so saying it's like, "Hey, look, I'm the one that give you everything." Like I said, just imagine you, you worshiping Santa Claus, right? Santa, this and that, and you disrespecting your parents, not realizing your parents is the one giving you everything. I think your parents will feel some kind of way about that, right? But people don't look at it like that because they so into the New Testament and don't come into the Old. And I tell people all the time, you need both, right? You got to understand where Christ and them are coming from. They're reading from the Old Testament, right? Putting everything together, right? And then you got to understand there are more than one God. Yeah, Paul said, "So us is one God." That's true, right? It's also true in the statement that it's one God, but Paul knows there's multiple gods, right? Because the word God or Allah, as it is in Hebrew, it just means power, right? So it can be any kind of power or ruler. Can it be referred to? Like you say, God can be referred to the Most High? Sure. We're not saying it can't be, right? But you got to understand that the word is used all throughout the scripture and it's not always referring to the Most High, right? It's not always referring to Him. Commandment number 2, right? "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow thyself down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments," right? So God is showing mercy to the ones who keep the commandments. So this is another thing too. People say that you don't gotta follow the law, stuff like that. God's telling you this is the one He shows mercy to, people who's trying to do right. The ones that love Him, that's the ones trying to do right, not somebody making excuses and things like that. Because we always get into the tendency to judge ourselves, like, oh, well, God, do this and that. Well, I'm saved, and you think you are, and you think you're doing right, but at the end of the day, you can't judge yourself, right? But it's saying don't make any graven image, right? So that's your crosses and all these things, which I'm gonna show you in a second what a graven image can be, because people always think it's just this giant statue that you worship, but it can be anything. You can make anything an idol, right? Basketball can be an idol, your books, your video game, a spouse, your mom, your dad, any of these things can be an idol, right? It's Leviticus chapter 26, verse 1. It says, you shall make you no idols, right? No graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God. So it's telling you no idols, right? No graven image. So it doesn't have to be an image. Like I said, it has to be a giant statue. You might not make that. You might make a small statue. You might make a poster or a picture, right? Neither you rear you up a standing image, right? Nothing that can stand, anything like that. So it's going over multiple things of what an idol could be and what it looks like, right? This is Exodus chapter 32, verse 7 and 8. And it reads, and the Lord said unto Moses, go get thee down, for thy people, which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto it, and said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. So this is another thing, right? When you make a sacrifice or offering or something, right? That can also be a form of worship depending on what it is, right? Because you could be doing this and it's not out of godly intent. Now people might say, oh, you're giving out cash or whatever. So let's say you're at the strip club, right? I hate to use this analogy, but I have to. You're at a strip club. You're throwing money down. Well, the stage is an altar, and the people are becoming idols or whatever that you worship. And you throw money down. That's your offering, right? Just like an offering plate, which I'm going to show you in a second. Idol worship and graven images and false things. I mean, it's so many different levels to it, right? It's not just a giant statue that's outside in the world, because even still with giant statues, people still worship those anyway, right? Or they go pay homage to them, reverence to them, right? And I tell you, I'm gonna show you that's not a good thing. So this is Jeremiah 10, verses 1 through 5. It says, hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil. Neither also is it in them to do good. So this is the Christmas tree. I don't care what nobody says, right? But they'll say this isn't the Christmas tree. This is what they call a Asherah pole. But we're gonna come back to this scripture in a second. But God's telling them this is key. They so focus on the tree part. Okay, cool. You focus on the tree part, but they don't focus on this part. It says, learn not the way of the heathen, right? And not realizing a lot of these things that people do are, heathenistic things, right? They're not things that God wants you to do anyway. So they'll focus so much on the part that moves them, that makes them do what they want to do instead of listening to God. Right. That was one thing I learned when I first started learning the word, and that's why I think it separated me from certain people, is that when you follow the word of God, it's going to divide. It's a two-edged sword, right? But people who hold on to their traditions and their things that they like so much that they'll find ways to get around scriptures, or think they get around scriptures and stuff like that. Right. But not realizing, because like I say, a lot of them don't read the Old Testament. A lot of people haven't read their Bible straight through. Right. Don't even know the story or the stories. They just know a few of them. They know David and, about Boaz and things like that. But you don't go in depth because you're not constantly reading. I'm not nobody that's perfect and read the Bible 100 times, but I'm familiar with the story. And every time I read, I learn something new, because it's such a big story. And there's so many things. Like each line matters, each verse matters, each word matters. So many things matter to the point where you could never get it into even reading it. Even Solomon, if he read this book, he still wouldn't have all the knowledge in the world. Right. or far as understanding of God. And let me show you. This is 2 Kings chapter 17, verses 24 through 41. And it reads, And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Cuthah, and from Ava, and from Hamath, and from Seraphim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria, instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria, and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which slew of them. Wherefore they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations which thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he hath sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, Carry thither one of the priests whom you brought from thence, and let them go and dwell there, and let him teach them the manner of the God of the land. Right? Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. Howbeit, every nation made gods of their own, and put them in the houses of the high places which the Sumerians had made, every nation in their cities wherein they dwelt. And the men of Babylon made Succoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima, and the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak. And the Serabites burnt their children to the fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Seraphim. So they feared the Lord and made unto themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. It says they feared the Lord and served their own gods, after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence. Unto this day they do after the former manners. They fear not the Lord, neither do they after their statutes, or after their ordinances, or after the law and commandment which the Lord commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel, with whom the Lord hath made a covenant, and charged them, saying, You shall not fear other gods, nor bow yourselves to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. But the Lord who brought you up out of the land of Egypt with great power and a stretched out arm, him shall you fear, and him shall you worship, and to him shall you do sacrifice. It says, And the statutes and the ordinance and the law and the commandment which he wrote for you, you shall observe to do forevermore, and you shall not fear other gods. And the covenant that I have made with you shall not forget, neither shall you fear other gods. But the Lord your God you shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the land of all your enemies. Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared the Lord and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers, so they do unto this day. So I showed you these scriptures, right, to show you that during this time period, right, even to this day, people will serve God and they will also serve other gods, right? Now, these are probably doing it more knowingly because as I'm reading on the things, Ashima, Nebaz, Tartak, those are gods, right? Those are the gods they were making statues, they were putting in their houses and things like that. But they also say they fear the Lord. But like a lot of Christians would say, people they say Hebrew Israelites, they say it too. They say they fear the Lord, but they also serve and worship other gods, right? By doing other things. Because like I said, the servant owner just got to be bowing down to some giant statue like Nebuchadnezzar. It could be so many different things. You can have something in your house, that you cherish. Oh, don't touch that picture. It's sacred. You know what I'm saying? And it's probably just a picture of your grandma, right? It's so many different ways that you can do this, so many different ways, right? And God, as we're reading, he being jealous because he's like, look, you can't serve them and serve me. It just doesn't work that way, right? You can't fear me and still mess with them, because if you mess with them, then maybe you don't fear me, because a part of fearing is obedience. And if you're obedient to God, you can't mess with other gods. So you couldn't possibly fear God like you think you could, right? So it says, so the nations feared the Lord and served their graven images, right? Because they want the best of both worlds too, because there's some things that God just don't allow, right? And only way I can get around that is by serving another God. So this is what God talking about when he's jealous, and this is when God's telling God before them, because now you're not going to do what God even tells you to do. They bring in a priest who tells them what to do in the land. They're like, okay, cool, we're going to do this, and that, but we also still want to do what we want to do over here. That doesn't work that way. So this is an astropole, right? Or asteropole or astropole. This is what they were describing or saying what it was in Jeremiah 10. Now, I'm not sitting here saying it's not an idol, because this is definitely something that God wouldn't tell you to do, right? Those look like idols or whatever. But Go back to Jeremiah 10. Where is it right here? It says they cut up the tree out of the forest. If somebody said right here in verse 3, it says the work of the hands of the workman an axe. They'll say this is the workman's hands, right? Which I wouldn't disagree. Okay, cool. Somebody's cutting it, so there's some work behind it. But this is another problem. It says they deck it with silver and with gold, and they fasten it with nails and hammers, so it didn't move not. You don't gotta fasten that with nails and hammers. It's gonna stay up. As you can see, it's staying up, right? There's no need to fasten that with nails and hammers. The roots will make it stay up, right? The pine tree roots, what the Christmas tree comes from, is not like that. Or the evergreen tree, whatever. It's not like that, right? Let alone it says they deck it with silver and gold. There ain't a stitch of silver or gold. You know, I done seen some horror movies in my lifetime, and I've seen these astro poles. Didn't know what they were at the time. Like decking this with silver and gold, man. But then, like I said, you don't know history. The tree comes from Nimrod, right? And I'll probably just do a separate video on Christmas. The tree comes from Nimrod, right? That's the tree that they planted over Nimrod's grave, right? And the children of Israel were putting them things in their houses because they was afraid, because they were told to don't put a tree under there, you put gifts, then there'll be a problem, right? You'll be cursed, you'll be got. Now that right there look like it's silver and gold. But we want to examine these pictures real quick. I'm looking at this Christmas tree, right? You got all these things. See those gifts? Now the gifts have been switched over to Santa, and you give gifts to people and stuff like that. But the gifts are offerings. I told y'all Satan is very wicked, man. Those gifts are offerings, right? Now we do have a feast and a parent where you can give gifts to people and stuff like that. But there is no idol involved. There is no tree involved. There is no statue. There's no nothing. I gotta give. And I see my loved one, I give it to them. They got a gift. They see me, they give it to them. Hugs and kisses, you know, to the Mr. and Mrs. Right? There's no thing. They're putting trees around there because, like I said, this is an offering to a god. You see that star? Those stars? People saw this is a star. These are not stars like in the sky. Stars don't even look like that. This is the star Baphomet or star Moloch. It doesn't matter what star you think it is. It's not a star in the sky, right? But this is always symbolic around Christmas. They'll have it on the top of the tree, or they'll have it somewhere on the tree, or you might see an angel, right? Which is another thing. That's a graven image. You're not supposed to have images of things that's from above or below, right? And you put them on a thing. But though, like I said, all those things go out the window because nobody not thinking about that. No, this is God's angel. He just said don't make no graven images. Mind you, angels don't look like that, but he said don't make no graven images. You had the nerve to put it on top of the tree, right? At least if you put Christ on top of the tree, the little fake white Christ, I could at least try to, be reasonable with you. You know what I mean? But then this, like I said, this whole event, they say it's about Christ. Nothing about this is Christ. A candy cane, okay, upside down J. All right, you trying, you reaching, but all the ornaments is elves and stuff and reindeer. It's not a bunch of ornaments of angels. It's not a bunch of ornaments of Joshua and Moses or anything. It ain't. At least it was something like that. I could live with it, but it's not. All right, this is right here in front of I think the New York Stock Exchange or it's like a bank in New York. This bull, right, or golden calf because it looks gold. Right, and then you got these totem poles, right? But these things look super creepy. They're kind of like blackface characters. This is probably what I would consider an idol, compared to what they would. But the reason why I would compare the Christmas tree to this too, because you can see the trees next to it too. See the trees? Like Christmas trees, right? They decorated and everything. Even these are not decorated with silver and gold. These totem poles right here. But even the trees, they still decorate the trees. These Christmas trees, right? Come on, man. Right? This is crazy. Like, it's the Bible is pretty simple, right? Because it's cut and dry. Now, mind you, it takes time to understand it. It takes you dealing with the Holy Spirit. But what happens is when you block your heart and you harden your heart, this is hard to accept, right? I'll show you another picture. That's the picture of Bill Russell on the right. I think it's when he died or whatever. And they went to his statue and put flowers. Those are offerings. Now, somebody be like, well, they just trying to show respect. That's cool. That's not even his grave. At least go do it at the grave. That's not his grave. But then I can show you on the left side, right? This is some picture overseas, I believe. And look, these are like little flowers and candles and stuff. This is an offerings to this statue. That's an offering. I don't care what nobody says. It's an offering. It's some type of memorial. This statue can't eat candles. It can't light candles. It can't smell flowers. They can't do none of those things, right? But people are putting it right there for a reason, right? This is Bill Russell. He's dead. He's not gonna see these flowers. He's not gonna smell those flowers. Like I said, at least if you was doing on his grave, I could respect it a little more. This ain't his grave. These are not graves. These are statues that they made, right? In Boston. It's not a grave. But like I said, the issue comes from what somebody believes in, right? Because it's too hard to heart. See, this right here is the offering plate, right? It's kind of similar to the one they talk about in Leviticus. So the Leviticus one looks more like a giant cup, but for purpose of this, right? This is the offering plate. You put money, they got their gift envelopes in there, cool. See this right here? This is a wishing well. You throw money in here to make a wish. There's nothing about that in the Bible to make a wish, but people do this. This is an offering, right? It's subtle. And usually get more children to do it than anything, right? But this is an offering. They be like, well, this ain't no idol. You don't know what this is. You just see a water fountain of water. You don't know why it's, built like this. You have no idea. Like I said, who does this benefit? Because eventually somebody got to come collect this money anyway. But, when I was a child, I was taught about the wishing well. Don't worry about it. I'll show you a bigger one. Look at this one. This one is huge. Now, they're on the right picture. They're, cleaning the pool out. Get scraping up all the money. But you see all these statues? I think that might be what's that name? To Neptune, not Neptune, Poseidon, right? But these are gods. Like all these people in these pictures is God. Somebody's throwing money into this water to make a wish. This is an offering. You're not supposed to do stuff like this. No, the Bible is against this. But they've made things so I didn't want to say childlike, but just so watered down, right? And they remove names and remove the act, and you don't see the fire, and now they make it seem like it's not. This is an offering because you put money in a plate, right? And the money you put in the plate, you're thinking that's God gonna help you out with your, what's going on. Same thing with here. Wishing well, you make a wish. Oh, I hope I get a kid. I hope I get this. And you throw it in a body of water, not even realizing. Look at all these. Look what it's surrounded by. Greek and Roman gods, right? So we gotta understand that these commandments, they mean something, right? It's the reason why God gave them. He didn't mention the commandments from Genesis to Revelation for no reason, right? It's a protection, right? It's to make us better and such things like that. So this is the third commandment. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless and taketh his name in vain. That taketh his name in vain. I apologize. Right, so you say a curse word, so you like God, you say the D word or whatever, they'll say that's God's name in vain. It could be. I'm not going to say it's not, right? The issue about the vain part is when you make it useless or you make it unholy or profane, because God has a reputation that he going to uphold, right? And he don't want nobody messing the reputation. So for instance, this is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 12. It says, and you shall not swear by my name falsely, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord. So you ever said somebody was like, oh, yeah, I did this, I swear to God, and it's a lie? They don't, a person might not know it's a lie, but they're lying about that. That's taking the Lord's name in vain. Neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God, right? So let's say you're saying God ain't God evil, this and that, or God doing this. You talking bad about God's name. That's profaning God's name, right? I gave you more scriptures. This Leviticus 18:21. It says, and thou shalt not let any of the seed pass through the fire of Moloch, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God. I am the Lord, right? So when you're doing that and you claiming God wanted you to get, to delete the baby, or God wanted you to pass your child to the fire back in the day, which is still deleting the child, just so the child is older, you could do it, right? God don't want you to do it, but you can do it. But when you do it, you don't say that was God's choice. God didn't let that happen. Even if somebody was to sexually assault a woman and they're having a baby, God didn't tell you to do that. Right? You don't make something holy by doing another profane thing. Right? That doesn't make it right. It doesn't fix the situation. Right? So this is Leviticus chapter 21, verses 9 through 12. It says, and the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, she profaned of her father, she shall be burnt with fire. And he that is the high priest among his brethren, upon whose head the anointed oil was poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not uncover his head, nor rend his clothes. Neither shall he go to any dead body, nor defile himself for his father, or for his mother. Neither shall he go out of the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of his God. For the crown of the anointing oil of his God is upon him. I am the Lord. So I showed you this about like profaning, right? So you read the first one in verse 9, it says, and the daughter, if she plays a whore, she profanes herself, right? By playing the whore. So that means she's defiled herself, made herself unholy. That's what she want to do. But it also makes the father look unholy because that's his um that's that's like the same thing as God, right? That's her head. So your dad looks bad. They're like, yeah, your daughter's a whore, your daughter's a harlot, XYZ. So now his name is profane. Now his name is slander, right? It's what could be considered vain. So it can even happen to people as well. And then when you go down, it talks about the priests and how they defile themselves and going to the sanctuary, not supposed to do certain things because, hey, God is the representative. Well, you're the representative, but you just represent God's company, right? And He don't want you out here making Him look bad, right? So that's what it means to take God's name in vain. This is Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 16 through 23. It says, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own way and by their doings. Their way was before me as the uncleanness of a removed woman. Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for the idols wherewith they had polluted it. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to the way of according to their doings. I judged them. Right, verses 20 through 23. It says, and when they entered unto the heathen, whither they went, they profaned my holy name. When they said to them, these are the people of the Lord, and are going forth out of his land. But I had pity for my holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the heathen, whither they went. Therefore, say unto the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord God, I do not this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sakes, which you have profaned among the heathen, whither you went. And I will sanctify my great name, which were profaned among the heathen, which you have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord, saith the Lord God, when I shall be sanctified in before your eyes. So Israel is out here acting a fool, right? And they're profaning God's name by not listening to God, right? But they're among the heathen, but they're still using God's name, right? They're still like, oh yeah, we're doing this and that, and you're looking at them. That was one reason why when I was younger, I didn't, take well to Christianity because I was hanging around Christians and they were doing the same thing that I was doing. So in reality, they was profaning God's name, right? And you can say I was too, but I wasn't. There ain't no connection with God. God wasn't my God. I mean, He's everybody's God, but ain't no relationship with me and Him. Right at that time, I'm serving the devil, but they're out here doing bad acts. So when they're doing bad acts, they don't even realize that's also steering me away. That makes me not want to come because it's like, well, if you're doing the same thing I'm doing, but you want me to give 2 hours of my life to God every Sunday or whatever you want me to do to still keep committing heinous acts, I just don't see the point, right? But they embarrassing them, just like you send your parents send you out somewhere and you showing off, and they get a phone call and they saying your child was being disruptive or XYZ. Yeah, you're making your parents look bad, just like us. We're making God look bad, right? And we shouldn't make God look bad. You're gonna follow God, let's do it right? Don't make God look bad. So this is the fourth commandment. It says, remember the Sabbath. So this is Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord had made heaven and earth, the sea, and all them that is, and rested the seventh day, wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. Right? So it's saying, hey, you work 6 days or do whatever you got to do in your 6 days, and on the seventh day, this belong to me. Don't be doing none of your pleasures and things like that, right? Now, things will come up where you might have to go, like I had to go, deliver something to somebody on a Saturday or whatever. Those things may happen, right? But that shouldn't be an every Saturday thing where you're going to go party or you're going to go drink with your friends or you're going to do these type of things. You're supposed to put a day away for the Lord, and He already made up a day for you. It's the Sabbath, the seventh day, the Saturday, right? Mark 2:27. And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath, right? So the Sabbath was made for us, right? It's a like I said, it's a guideline to keep us in track. All right. You can't figure out what day you're supposed to serve the God. Don't worry about it. I give you one. All right. And it has so many benefits, worshiping on the Sabbath, right? Acts 15:21. So Christ is long dead. It says, for Moses of old time having every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. Right? So people be reading about the word every Sabbath day. Every time you go to church, that's what you're supposed to be doing, reading about the word. Sometimes you go to church, they don't really read too much about the word, but that's cool. Another day, another topic. But we supposed to be learning about the word, right? That's what it's about. And the Sabbath day is the day for that. Isaiah 66:22, verse 23, it says, for as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. So shall your seed and your name remain. Apologies. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship me before the Lord. So this is the future prophecy in Isaiah. It's saying that everybody gonna come worship God on the new moons, right? The feast days, and from Sabbath to another Sabbath, right? So even in the future, when Christ comes back, we're gonna have to follow the Sabbath. So like I said, why not do it now? Why not get used to it now? Why not practice it now? Because God already wants you to practice it. Because clearly, when He comes back, when Christ comes back, we're gonna be doing it anyway, right? So the Sabbath matters. They'll tell you in the New Testament, oh, well, Christ ain't talk about the Sabbath, so that's one of the 10 Commandments that we don't gotta follow. Don't believe that, right? Check this out. This is Exodus chapter 31, verses 12 through 18. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord that doeth sanctify you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Right? Everyone that defileth shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off among his people. 6 days may be work done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord, right? Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It's a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made the end of communion with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimonies, tables of stones written with the finger of God. So I showed the one before this, and I showed this on purpose because people would say, well, see, this is only for the Israelites, right? Because he says this is the covenant he made with Israel. But I just also showed you that it's also for man, right? So is man just Israel? Because like I said, they pick and choose depending on when they want to be Israel and when they don't, or they spiritual Israel. But then I showed you before this, right, where it says all nations, right? So if all nations are going to come and do these type of things, and everybody should come to pass, where everybody comes from one place to another, and they're going to be worshiping on a Sabbath, they're going to be worshiping the Feast of Tabernacles, then the Sabbath can't just be for Israel. So we all should be worshiping the Sabbath. So there's no reason for the Sabbath to go away, right? It's a way that you count days too. It's a way that you keep track of what's going on, right? This is first fruits, right? This is Leviticus 23, verse 15 and 16. And it says, and you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. From the day that you brought the sheaves of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days, and you shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord, right? So you count 7 Sabbaths after the Passover, right? And you get 49 days, and then you add another day, which would be that Sunday or Saturday night. And then that's the day of Pentecost, which means 50, because Pente means 50, right? But you can just get that if you're just keeping tracks of your Sabbaths, right? And I'm going to show you, right? Give you an example. It's a little chart I made up. So we're just saying this is the start of the year. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, right? God made earth in 6 days. Boom. The seventh he rest, right? The first Sabbath, first Saturday, right? Let's count one, first Sabbath. Then you got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now, mind you, the day start at nighttime, so technically Passover will start right here. So with the Sabbath, all the Sabbaths will start Friday night. But just for context sake, we're just going to just do the day because it's easier because everybody's already programmed to, go by Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and the actual day they're living in. So like today is Sunday, um, but Sunday would have started technically last night, right, on Saturday night. But anyway, like I was saying, 2, 4. So on the 14th day, which you'll get in Leviticus and other places in the Bible, is the Passover. So the Passover is on the 14th day, right? It's the second Sabbath, right? And then this is Matazawaf, right? This is unleavened bread. This is the 15th day, right? You see how easy that is? This is the 15th day, right? And then you do it for 7 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, and it ends on the Sabbath as well. This will be the third Sabbath. But remember, I said you got to count 7 Sabbaths from Pentecost, right? Cool. So that's a Pentecost. I mean, this is Passover, 1 Sabbath, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, 7 times 7 is 49. Plus 1 is 50. So now after the second Sabbath, right, you got to count going down. So after the ninth Sabbath, right, once the ninth Sabbath happened, I know that Pentecost is next. And you can do this with the whole biblical calendar because it's 364 days. So the days always going to land on the same date. Passover will always be the 14th day of the first month, right? No matter what. It's always going to be on Saturday. Unleavened bread is always going to be on Sunday, right? It's always going to be like this, right? The Sabbaths matter, and you could just literally keep up with the calendar just by counting Sabbaths, right? So the Sabbaths matter. Don't let nobody tell you that those don't matter, right? This is the 5th commandment. It says, "Honor thy mother and thy father," right? Honor thy father and thy mother, that their days may be gone upon the land, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, right? So God's like, hey, look, man, honor the Sabbath, right? Honor the Sabbath, now honor your father and mother, right? And this is like a respect. Even if your parents, let's say your parents was devil worshippers, right? You ain't got to sit here and deal with them because they worshiping the devil, and that's something that you don't do, right? But you also don't got to sit here and disrespect your parents neither, right? And that's what God's talking about, right? He's not sitting here saying, "Hey, um, oh, they worship the devil. They're not serving me. Kill your parents, do those type of things, right?" God isn't saying that at all, right? But what he is saying is that those are the parents I gave you. I allowed them to bring you into this world. You should always have honor and respect for them, right? No matter what's happened to you, right? They could have beat you as a child, and of course, you didn't like it and things like that, but you don't have no reason to disrespect them, right? You shouldn't disrespect your parents, right? There should always be some honor. And God's telling you, when you honor your parents, your days is long upon you, right? So that means God will honor you and give you longer days in life and living, right? But you don't have to disrespect your parents, right? Ephesians 6, 1 through 3. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou may live as long on the earth." Now, right here, when it says obey your parents, people are like, well, how can I obey, but they're doing wrong? Well, it says parents in the Lord, right? For this is right. So it still has to be according to God's word. It's not according to God's word like Abraham and his dad. He won't listen to his dad, right? He didn't disrespect his dad neither, but he didn't listen to his dad. He listened to Noah and Shem because they're doing right. So he gonna hang with them, right? And eventually his dad will come along once he realized that he'd been sinning and shouldn't be sinning no more, which he does. If you read the book of Jasher. But you don't disrespect them. They're still your parents, right? But people, they don't really take heed to that nowadays. They'll be just doing whatever they want to do, still disrespecting their parents and things like that. Proverbs 1 and 8, verses 1 and 8 and verse 9. It says, "My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head and chains about thy neck," right? So it's almost like wearing your jewelry. Your jewelry reminds you of God and stuff like that. But your mother's instructions and your father's instructions, they should be like laws unto you as well, right? When it's coming from God, telling you what to do. Even when it's not necessarily coming from God, it could be like clean up your room, stuff like that. Don't disrespect your parents. right? A lot of kids disrespect their parents. Shouldn't do that, right? Because they still bring you into this world, right? Exodus 21:15-17, and this one reads, "And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall be put to death, shall be surely put to death. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. And if he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death." So you're cursing your father, your mother, not necessarily just curse words, but wishing bad things to happen to them. They were putting people to death for this back in the day, right? Not supposed to do that. So you hit your parents. I done seen children hit their parents. Not supposed to strike your parents, right? There has to be some type of honor. Like you want to strike God, you want to talk to God, because this is also getting you a preparation to deal with God. Talking to your father and your mother. Having spiritual parents, right, giving you almost like a foreshadowing, right? Don't hit your parents, man. Don't talk crazy to your parents. Honor your parents, right? Proverbs 15:5, it says, "A fool despiseth his father's instruction, but he that regardeth reproof is prudent." Right? So if you over here disrespecting your father and you don't want to take correction, what can God do with you? Right? How can God work with you? Right? How could any of this go any good for you when you're going against God? It just doesn't make sense. Right? And then I got these pictures. Honor your mother and father, right? Honor our father and mother. We got the children giving stuff to their parents and the two parents playing with their child, right? Just thought it was cool pictures to add. But always show respect to your parents. They're your parents, they're not your friends, right? Sixth commandment, and respect your friends too. Thou shalt not kill, right? So this one really should be thou shalt not murder. So the King James, as much as I support the King James, should be thou shalt not murder, not thou shalt kill, because you can kill somebody and it necessarily wouldn't count on your hands as blood. But murder is when you kill somebody or harm somebody and they die and they're innocent. Killing can be somebody that you harmed that wasn't innocent, right? So, for instance, Proverbs 1:11, it says, "If they say, 'Come with us, let us lay wait for blood, let us lurk privately for the innocent without cause.'" This will be considered murder. You waiting to beat up on the innocent. And people talking about, well, there's a lot of murder in the Bible and the wars. It's not murder in the wars. It's the difference, right? These are not innocent people. Deuteronomy 19:11. Verse 13, right? This one reads, "But if any man hate his neighbor and lie in wait for him and rise up against him and smite him mortally, that he die and fleeth into one of the cities, then the elders of his city shall send and fetch him thence and deliver him into the hand of the avenger of blood, that he may die. Thine eye shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away this guilt of innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with thee," right? Because you don't want to have this guilt of somebody dying for no reason. So whoever killed them, we got to go get him and we got to put him to death because he killed somebody for no reason, right? That's murder. Thou shalt not kill is a little different situation, right? And I believe I got the scripture for it. Okay, here we go. Exodus 22:2, verses 3. It says, "If a thief be found breaking up and be smiting that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him, right? If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him. For he shall make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft." So let's say somebody break into your house, and during the break-in, you wind up killing him. You're not guilty for that, right? There's no bloodshed for that. You're free, right? You did kill somebody, but it wasn't murder because somebody was doing wrong. You were protecting yourself and your family. That's okay. Now, let's say he breaks into your house and he leaves, and the sun comes up. So the next day, then came by. You can't kill him now, right? But he got to make restitution. So if he's caught, he got to whatever he took, he got to pay for it, right? He took a TV, whatever the law says you got to give up, you got to give up, right? And I said he has nothing, then he's gonna be sold for his theft. So then he's gonna be sold as a slave because he got to work off his debt that he accumulated when he broke into your house. But if you was to kill him, there is no bloodshed for him, right? But in this one, they had to shed blood, right? So right here, an avenger blood because it was somebody that was innocent, right? In this case, the thief isn't innocent, so the blood won't be shed. So thou shalt not kill should really be thou shalt not murder, right? King James ain't perfect. I do this all the time. It's not perfect. He got flaws, and that's one of them. But it should be thou shalt not murder, right? The seventh commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Exodus 20 and 14. It says Leviticus in 18:20 and Leviticus 20 and 10. The first one reads, Moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife, to thou defile thyself with her. So adultery, from what I've come to learn and understand in the years, it's when a man sleeps with another man's wife, or a woman who's married sleeps with somebody else's husband, right? But the parties are both married, right? Leviticus 20 and 10, it says, And that man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the other adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. So both of them got to die because they're both wrong, right? Compared to if I was to do it with somebody that wasn't married, I'm wrong. We're both wrong, but it's more fornication. It's not adultery, right? So that's kind of a difference. Fornications cover a multitude. Adultery is when it's dealing with somebody else's spouse, right? A spouse on a spouse. But they both have to die. So remember when they asked Christ to kill the lady because they caught her in the act of adultery, right? People would say, well, see, Christ was forgiving her grace. He did. But another thing that y'all not realizing, like I said, if you're not following the scriptures, right here it says the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely put to death. So it has to be two people that die. You can't just kill one. So when the Pharisees and them brought the lady to him, they didn't bring the other person. They said she was caught in the act, so it should have been somebody, there with her. They didn't bring the other person, right? Because they probably were the other people that were having sex with this lady, and they didn't bring the other person. And she, being a smart person, really, she ain't trying to die. So why would she tell? Why would she tell on herself? You know what I mean? So she like, well, shoot, I ain't about to tell on myself. So since I'm not telling on myself, I ain't about to say nothing because she know the rules too, right? And then Christ says, sin no more. So clearly she was sinning, right? But he couldn't kill her according to the law because that's the law. Both of them had to die. Now, if they had brought the other person, then Christ would probably kill both of them, right? I'm guessing he would have because he's going by the law and Christ got to follow the law. He can't not follow the law, right? So he's going to start the stoning or just do the stoning himself. But I know that's the thing. This is another reason why adultery is very dangerous, right? Because I've seen incidences like this before. Well, this is Proverbs 6:24, verse 35, right? Same thing what happened with David. And David tried to cover up his mistake, right? Because he slept with somebody else's wife. Now, mind you, David probably slept with multiple women just like Solomon, but it wasn't always somebody else's wife, right? It could have been just a lady that wasn't married yet, and now they became married to him, or, could have even been a harlot. But somebody else's wife is a different situation, right? So verse 24 reads, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman, lust not after her beauty in thy heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. For by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? So he that goeth into his neighbor's wife, whosoever touches her shall not be innocent, right? Men, do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul when he is hungry. But if he be found, he shall restore sevenfold. He shall give all the substance of his house. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroy his own soul. A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. For jealousy is the rage of a man. Therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not regard any ransom, neither will he rest content, though thou givest many gifts. So I didn't commit adultery, but I was a fornicator, right? I was married, right? And I could see the difference now just doing and seeing what happened, because if I was to take somebody else's wife, he probably came to kill me. Right? Not gonna lie, because it just breeds a jealousy, and God is like, that's gonna be just a vengeance, right? Of him not sparing you, right? And with that being said, I can see the difference in adultery and fornication, right? Now, mind you, sometimes fornication happens amongst people and they're not married, and you'll still get somebody wanting revenge. But I know a lot of the times when it's happening, the man will seek jealousy because now you done took what he claimed his own. It was almost like you took his property, right? And that's why it says that the honor you shall he get, and it's going to destroy his own soul, just like David. Even I, had a dilemma going through this. It'll destroy your soul because, like I said, the lack of understanding of what you've done or whatever you've committed. Right? David took somebody else's wife, got her pregnant, and wound up trying to cover it up. Had to get a man murdered. That was murder. Right? That wasn't killing. Right? He didn't deserve to die, but David was trying to cover his own self from doing this act that he did, right? So adultery is very serious, right? Even though you shouldn't fornicate, right? Fornicating is not adultery; it's a different thing. When two married people get together, and they two married people or two different married couples, whether it's a man or woman, no matter how you look at it. But when they get together and they're already in a marriage, right? That's not good. That's adultery, right? We're not supposed to do that, right? It's the eighth commandment. Thou shalt not steal, right? I was just talking about when it says steal, somebody steal you when he's hungry. Hey, give him grace. But if he still got to pay for what he stole, but we ain't about to just kill him just because he's only stealing because he's hungry. He wasn't stealing because that's his occupation. Compared to some people now out here in these streets, even back then, they steal because it's occupation, right? It's Leviticus 19:11 and verse 13. It says, "You shall not steal, neither deal falsely, neither lie to one another." Right? Because so stealing can be just lying to somebody, right? You taking something, oh, I didn't do that. You stole, right? Or anything. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning. So you can steal from somebody by not paying them their just due, right? Or deceiving your neighbor in something, right? People do these type of things all the time, right? And they just saying the commandments don't matter. I bet they don't matter because you're doing them all the time. Leviticus 19:35-37, it says, "You shall do no unrighteousness in the judgment, and meteor and weight on measure. Just balances, just weight, a just ephod, and a just hand shall you have. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall you observe all my statutes and all my judgments and do them. I am the Lord." Right? So everything should be in just and not unrighteousness. So if you're giving somebody something, make sure you give them what you told you to give them. If you're going to give them a car, let them know everything that's wrong with the car. Right? You say you selling somebody 20 apples, you only give them 18 or 19, and you put some rocks in there or something. That's evil, right? Everything should be just as you do, because even when you do something like that, right, that's unjust and you stealing. Now, people think of stealing, like I said, as a physical act when it's somebody, grabbing something from somebody else's possession or things like that. But even when you short somebody, it's stealing, right? Even when you lie to somebody about what you got to give them, that's stealing, right? There's different type of ways. Proverbs 11:1. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. So he thinks a false balance. So when you're doing somebody dirty and not giving them their fair credit, their fair due, far as money, wages, items, anything that y'all agreed upon a deal, that's an abomination to him, right? So like I said, what we see is something small. God may not see it that way. These commandments matter, y'all. All right. Don't let nobody tell y'all they don't. Deuteronomy 24:7. If a man be found stealing in any of his brethren and the children of Israel, and make of merchandise of him, or sell of him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among him. So then this is somebody that was stealing somebody, right? Stealing somebody, making them a slave, or let's say I stole somebody's cattle and I was using it, merchandise, any of these things, right? And you over here making money off of it and stuff, oh, he got to go, right? One, you shouldn't be stealing, but then you also stole and made a profit off of what you stole, right? God is totally against that, right? Amos 3:10, it says, "For they know not to do right, saith the Lord, who store violence and robbery in their palaces," right? So some people, like I said, are thieves. The things that they obtain, they've got it from being a thief, and they store it up in their house, right? But it's violence, it's robbery. It's not good. I was once like that. I stole a whole bunch of clothes from the store. A whole bunch of clothes from the store. I had a friend and he was security, and I was like, "What can I get, man?" I came back. I had so many clothes, I didn't know what to do. Right? Totally wrong. Right? To the point where Later on, during my journey and following God, I felt so convicted about those clothes. I don't even have no more. I have not one pair of those clothes, right? Because I felt so convicted, like, dang, I shouldn't have did that. I mean, I was like a lot of clothes. And at the time, I feel like I needed clothes. So, like God was saying, when somebody's hungry or something like that, like, yeah, we get it. But when it's time to pay due, you got to pay back what you owe once you got caught. And God caught me. He been caught me, right? But it allowed me to wear the clothes, and I needed the clothes at the time. And he wear me the clothes, but I felt so bad and had so much conviction for doing, that type of thing, right? So I've committed all these um, sins up here, right? And the ninth commandment: Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Oh yeah, people lie about it. I'm trying to think. I lie on somebody. Probably have. Yeah, some just say I committed all these things. Not bear false witness against thy neighbor, right? So you should not be lying on somebody, right? Because like I said, you lie on somebody, this man's life could be at stake. He can wind up dying. He got a family. He got friends. He got loved ones. He got a job. He got a livelihood. Why would you lie on that man, right? Leviticus 19 and 16. Thou shalt not go up and down as a talebearer among thy people, neither shalt thou stand against the blood of thy neighbor. I am the Lord. Right? So it says you shouldn't be telling shit. You shouldn't be going around telling everybody stuff. Shouldn't be going around telling, oh yeah, you know what Chris did? Oh yeah, you know what little Tifa did? Oh, you know what Shauna did? Nah, man, shut up. Right? Because then you only doing it and you stirring them strife and then you putting blood in people's hands and now people probably fighting. Then you could possibly be spreading lies. Sometimes you might not be, but you could be spreading lies. And now you spreading lies, people getting hurt, innocent people dying, right? God says don't do that, right? Keep your mouth shut. Stop gossiping and things. Exodus 23, verses 6 through 8 says, Thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor and his cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not. For I will not justify the wicked, and thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise, and perverted the words of the righteous, right? So it says, keep thee far from a false matter. So you're a liar, you need to stay out of the business, right? You don't need to be on no jury. You don't need to be instigating nothing because you're going to lie anyway. And now the righteous going to die for something that was done that was wicked, right? And the wicked is not justified, right? Far as the wicked, so he says, so I would not justify the wicked, right? You're not supposed to justify the wicked, but then somebody's lying, creating a false matter, you're justifying the wicked, and the person that should be justified and innocent, they're going to get killed, right? Then it says, Thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise, right? And perverted the words of the righteous. Shouldn't be taking no bribery. So somebody say, yeah, bro, just come here and testify, get money. Like I said, I've been in all these situations, right, with friends in my life and things like that when I'm signing notaries and affidavits and all these other things, trying to keep the street, stop snitching, what I'm saying, justifying the wicked. Don't do that. Somebody try to pay you off, like the movie Shaft, they paid the girl not to say nothing. Like, no, right? Because now this is why the wicked wins. And people are like, why the wicked winning? Because of y'all. You contributing to the problem, right? Deuteronomy 19:15 through 21. It reads, One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin. And any sin that he sinneth at the mouth of two witnesses or at the mouth of three witnesses shall the matter be established. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and behold, if the witness be a false witness and have testified falsely against his brother, then shall ye do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shall thou put the evil away from among you, and those which remain shall hear and fear, and shall henceforth commit no more any such evil among you. And thy eye shall not pity, but life shall go for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. So this is saying, hey, don't even come here and let nobody judge that's a false accuser. Somebody's gonna lie, somebody gonna fabricate the story, right? And the reason being said because they could be putting innocent man to harm, innocent man to jail, innocent man to death. But let's say they do let this dude do this and they find out that he's false and he's lying, whatever punishment they were going to get, he gets. So he's gonna get 20 years in jail, you give it to him. They're gonna cut off his hand, you cut off his hand. They take his eye, take his eye, right? And I think that's fair. Right. Now, mind you, today's society, we don't do these things because we don't penalize nobody to that point of law where they and death, but we should stand up for somebody bearing false witness because, like I said, it's no good. It doesn't help us. It doesn't benefit us as a society. It doesn't move us. It doesn't make us, better, right? So why should we justify those things, right? This is the 10th and final commandment. It says, "Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not cover thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is in thy neighbor's." Right? Covering and mean is like a strong lust, right? You shouldn't lust on anything that your neighbor has. Can you like the stuff that they have? Like, he got a good wife, man. He got a nice wife. I want a wife like that. That's fine. Don't take his wife, right? He may have a nice car. Don't steal his car. Get your own car. He got good cattle. He might got a nice little pit bull you like. Don't take his pit bull. Get your own pit bull, right? Because what happens is when you start lusting, right, which is covenant, is you start lusting, it'll make you do things you're not supposed to, like this. Psalms 10:3 says, "For the wicked boasts of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth." So when a wicked person boasting on his heart's desire, like, "Oh yeah, I want to do this and that," right? And blessing the covenants, right? And somebody else is blessing and agreeing that they should do these type of things. This is crazy, right? This is insane because now, like I said, you're enticing and you're supporting somebody taking from somebody. You're supporting somebody being evil or mean to somebody, right? I'm going to show you scriptures about it. Ecclesiastes 5:10 and verse 11. It says, "He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This is also vanity. When goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to the owners thereof, saying, beholding of them with their eyes," right? So let's say you're so greedy because you keep lusting, you keep taking this, taking this, taking that. You're getting all the silver stuff like that. Eventually, you're gonna realize there's no point in it because it doesn't stop, right? You're not gonna be able to get all the silver in the world. You're not gonna be able to get all the gold in the world. So there has to be a point where you put a cap on yourself. Most people don't put caps on themselves. This is why they chase money. This is why they keep buying shoes. They keep buying clothes. They keep doing these things. That's sin, right? They may not see it as that, but it's sin, right? It's a lust sin, and it turns into greed and so much others. Then the second one on verse 11, it says when the goods increase. So let's say you just keep buying stuff and food, but then you got so much stuff, you can't even use it. You have 30 cars. What do you need 30 cars for, right? And you got nobody to share it with. Same thing with food. You got all this food in your house, but you're not eating it all. You're just wasting food, right? All this happens off of lust because you're obtaining more than what you need, right? We so focused on what we want and not what we need, and it turns into sins, right? Jeremiah 22, verse 17. It says, "But thine eyes and thy heart are not before thy covetousness, and for to shed innocent blood, and for oppression, and for violence to do it." That's not what your eyes are supposed to be. That's not what your heart should be set on, right? To shed innocent blood for oppression and violence. And this is the type of things that start happening because, like I said, then you'll wind up killing people. You'll wind up oppressing people. You'll wind up hurting people to get what you want. Right. This is why you shouldn't covet because it'll lead to these bad things. Right here, Micah 2:2. It says, "And they covet fields and take them by violence and houses and take them away so that they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage." Right. Because when you start coveting things, that's when you want it. Oh, man, he got all that farm. Let's take it. You done hurt this man, his family, and so much more, and he ain't done nothing to you. Right. All because you didn't want to work and get your own land. He could have put you on and gave you some land. Right? Because he got you established to get you some land. Nah, you just got to take it. Not realizing that's not what God wants you to do. Take, and stuff, right? Because it causes harm and destroys people. Right. Joshua 7:20, verse 21. It says, "And Achan answered Joshua and said, Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and thus have I done. When I saw among the spoils a goodly Babylonian garment and 200 shekels of silver, and a wage of gold of 50 shekels weight, that I covered them and took them. And behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it." Right. So God actually told them they could take the gold and silver, but he also had some idols too, right? And God told him, "Don't take none of those things," right? And he took him, right? And he wound up dying. God was like, because they told Joshua, "Hey, you got people in the camp that's not following rules." And they had to find him, and they wound up stealing him, right? But it was crazy because God told them what they can take, and he took other things that God didn't tell him to take, right? All because he coveted these things and he wanted them, right? God already gave you stuff to take, and you still wanted more, right? You wanted more than what you needed, and it cost you, right? And that usually what happens to us all the time. We always want more than what we need, and it costs us, and we're not understanding that. You don't need all that. You want stuff, but you don't need it. People want a lot of things, but when they start realizing you don't need it, it's a total different situation than things that you need. Needs and wants, two different things. So just to go over the 10 again, the first one on the left stone is thou shalt not have no other gods before me. The second one is thou shalt have not made unto the engraven images. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The fourth one is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The fifth one is honor thy father and mother. The sixth one is thou shalt not murder, right? The seventh one is thou shalt not commit adultery. The eighth one is thou shalt not steal. The ninth one is thou shalt not bear false witness. And the 10th one is thou shalt not covet, right? Those are the 10 commandments. They ain't gone nowhere. They're not going to go nowhere. This is God's law. This is God's rules. This is what God wants you to know and understand, right? We should follow these rules and these laws, right, all the time. And the reason why we should do them because it makes you holy. It makes you closer to God. It makes the society better. There's so many benefits good in doing good. It's just so good doing good. But when you want to do bad and you want to break rules, and then when that rain start pouring and you can't figure out why your umbrella don't work or why the rain won't stop, why is it flood, why the house has been destroyed? It's because we can't stop sinning, right? So New Testament, Old Testament, Christian, Israelite, um, Jewish person, Muslim, I keep those 10 commandments, man. At least do the basic 10 because when you do those 10, you ain't got to worry about the other ones because you'll fall right in line, right? So that's today's lesson. And thank y'all, Tawada and Shalom, and I'll see y'all again. Peace.